Ken?
World Series Game 7 tonight. Not that I don't have care for either.
I call the special meeting of the Auburn School Committee together. This is the October 30th meeting. The first thing we'll do is that we'll have a Pledge of Allegiance. You all stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, here.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Belknap has an injury, so he was unable to stand, so he did respectful things. All right.
Madam Chair? There are
Yes.
2 items missing. One is introductions, and the other one is communications. At the
This
top.
is a special meeting on it, so what we're here for, we can certainly have introductions on it, that's great. And communications, it's a special meeting, and then we're going into executive session. That's the crux of what we're doing tonight, Alfreda.
So we don't have time for communications. There's a lot of communications we need to deal with.
I have a lot of communications to deal with right here, we do,
Right.
so.
And these are others that come from different,
Let's proceed with what's here, and then we can come back to that if we see. we
okay,
want
because
to.
there are a couple of very important ones.
And they're very important here, too, so
Right.
let's.
Right, I agree.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, can I have approval, a motion of the consent agenda, please, of approval?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor of the consent agenda? So I see 2 not down here? And you're not? And Alfreda. Okay, the motion passes. All right, this is public participation. As of September 19th, there was a new law. Thank you, Mr. Thistle, for reminding us of it. There was a new law that was passed by the legislature to be sure that we had public participation, even when we're going into executive session or having a special meeting. So at this time, I'll read what the public participation is, and then we'll open it up. So here we go. The school committee asks the public to remember our system-wide code of conduct and the 6 core values of respect, honesty, courage, compassion, fairness, and responsibility while directly addressing the group. Our policy, JIC, states that we expect people to treat others as you would like to be treated. Use language that is appropriate and kind, and be truthful and forthright in speech and actions. Per our policy, BEDH, public participation and school committee meetings, citizens may comment on any general topics related to the school system during this portion of the agenda. Comments related to specific agenda items may be held until the appropriate time. Please be succinct and speak once for less than 3 minutes. Other limitations may be necessary, and actually, I'm going to limit public participation tonight because we have a full agenda to 40 minutes. The school committee may respond to your concern at a later date by answering through the administration or by placing the item on a future agenda. It is requested that comments related to specific personnel be channeled privately to the appropriate administrator. Okay, so I'm opening it up to public participation. Please come up, state your name and your address, and we can go forth from there. First person, anybody?
Am I a member of the public?
That's a good question, Bob. Right now, you're acting as a school committee member.
Well, I have one comment before we go into executive session. I would like to know who hired this out-of-town attorney and why we need one.
Actually, I will answer that question later on, Bob.
Well, I think the public deserves to hear that. And I'm sure there's Auburn attorneys qualified to do the job.
So this is the deal. We have an attorney, Drummond and Whitsom, that is from Portland. They specialize in school law and school issues on it. They are used by many of the school systems in this area.
Who is he working for in this case?
He is working for the school board, the school committee, as you like to call us. He is the school committee's attorney. And
So he's representing the school committee?
he is representing the school committee on it. That's his job. He does not represent the superintendent of schools. She is part of the school department, and he represents not only the committee, but the school department. And when she's acting as school department superintendent, then she is represented by him. But he represents the school committee, in this case, when we're negotiating on it. So that's, excuse me, Laura, no. Excuse me. There'll be no outburst from the audience tonight, Laura. I'm very sorry.
I have a follow-up from
Yes.
his comment.
Not yet, Laura.
I have a follow-up.
Sure.
And I respectfully make a motion that we disqualify the lawyer who is present today to participate in executive session proceedings based on the fact that the school committee was never advised of this possibility as of the last executive session on October 16th, and again today. This decision was clearly made solely by the school committee chair, Bonnie Hayes. Furthermore, the school committee was never given the opportunity to vote on whether we desired the presence of a lawyer, nor given the opportunity to approve expenditures for the lawyer's services.
My comment is no longer needed.
I need a second.
I second that.
Any discussion on this?
This decision I thought might have been made prior to my joining the school committee. I would have thought that would have been a collective decision as to why lawyer representation would have been needed if we have policies and procedures in place.
Democracy, you
Excuse me. On it, any other comments?
iron fist.
Excuse me. Any other comments? All right, is it the desire of this board to continue to have Drummond and Woodson present at this time? And the reason Drummond and Woodson is present, has been asked to be present, is that he knows the school laws, he knows our policies, and he can represent it better than anybody here on this board.
You just said was asked. It was asked by,
I asked him, I have the right to ask him to come, and
Okay.
I asked him to come and be sure that we're going down the right road, Karen, to what we're supposed to do. We've had a lot of comments and a lot of discussion that we were incorrect the last time we did this, and so that is why he's here, to be sure that we can follow the rules and the policies. And as you know, I spoke very little, and so didn't Brian and Faith the last time. So that is why he's here, to be sure that he's protecting us, to be sure that we don't have any any situations that may arise that are incorrect. That the superintendent can come back and sue us for. So I'll call for a vote. Anybody, all in favor of not
Excuse
having
me,
Mr.?
is there a motion on the floor?
There is.
May I speak to the motion?
Yes, you may.
Yes, what is the motion? I'm sorry.
The
You didn't make a motion,
was-
actually.
The motion was to disqualify the lawyer who is present today to participate in executive session proceedings based on the fact that the school committee was never advised of this possibility at the last executive session at October 16th, and again today. This decision was clearly made solely by the school committee chair, Bonnie Hayes. Furthermore, the school committee was not given the opportunity to vote on whether we desired the presence of a lawyer, nor given the opportunity to approve expenditures for the lawyer's services.
I have two comments with regard to this. One is that in the last year and a half, I've been coming before the school committee. At one time, I came to the school committee, and Chairman Kendall advised the public that we were ill-informed about his role and the role of other school committee members with regard to their duties to the public that elected them. He specifically stated that the law says that once elected to the seat that you are in, you no longer owe any duty or responsibility to those who elected you. Quite frankly, I was shocked by this, having had been a political science major in college and gone on to law school. It seems that Drummond and Woodsum makes it a practice of advising school committees all across the state that once you are elected to that seat, the only duty you have is to the best interest of the students. This is based on an old case law. This has been a matter of discussion at hearings in Augusta. There was actually a law proposed this year by Amy Arata of New Gloucester relative to this. It is not the law, it is the advice of Drummond and Woodsum, and it cuts very much in favor of the superintendent and the school committee. It is not the law. If we had an attorney, and yes, I'm an attorney, I don't represent the public behind me, but I will speak on their behalf and say that if we had an attorney, we could come up with an opinion that was the opposite of Drummond and Woodsum's opinion. Okay? So that is a problem when you folks are operating from the assumption that you do not owe any obligation to hear from us. And the irony is that you are supposed to be looking out for the best interests of our children, and yet you say you don't have to consider our input as parents and families. So that is one thought I have with regard to the retention of Drummond and Woodsum as the attorney for our school committee. The second thought I have is Ms. Hayes. On September 4th, it is my opinion, and I intend to press this with the Attorney General's office, that you held an illegal executive session. I specifically came here. I asked you to go on the record with regard to whether or not what you would be taking up in executive session. You had simply stood up and announced that you would be going into executive session. There was no motion. I forced you to do a motion. I forced you to state on the record why you were going into executive session. Why did you go into executive session that day? You maintained that it was for the evaluation of Katie Grondin, our superintendent, when in fact you came out of the executive session, which before the executive session, Alfreda Fournier, Mr. Meneely had both objected to the abbreviated and rushed evaluation that Chairman Kendall had been trying to do in order to provide Superintendent Grondin with a contract well ahead of schedule. They had gone on the record and objected. They had heard nothing. Chairman Kendall got in an accident. That night, you were left at the helm. Rather than openly discussing in front of the public, as it should have been done, whether or not policy and procedure was followed, and whether you intended to follow it, you instead went into executive session against the law. You were not, in fact, taking up personnel matters. You were, in fact, taking up policy and procedure matters that should have been done in the public domain. Furthermore, you came back out here and then proceeded to tell us that you had all been bothered by the rushed state of affairs. And then I remember Mike Martell got up and said, "Do you really honestly expect us to believe that? That in fact, the only reason you had gone back into executive session and made the decision to change the plan was because the gallery behind you here was full." I intend to press with the Attorney General. Furthermore, I do not understand how you can have an executive session tonight when at the last committee meeting, you clearly stated on the record that you had nothing to report with regard to the evaluation of Superintendent Grondin. Actually, what you said was you had nothing to report with regard to the negotiation and evaluation of Superintendent Grondin. Quite frankly, I think that's getting the cart ahead of the horse. Katie, this is no reflection on you. This is about the need, especially in light of the fact that it has been revealed that for 3 years there has been no evaluation, no comprehensive assessment of our district. The thing is, Chairwoman Hayes, if we don't start today and do a comprehensive assessment of the district, where we're at, whether we're moving in the right direction, forwards, backwards, sideways, if we don't do that today, we're kicking the can down the road in the dark, irregardless of Superintendent Grondin, whether she's there next year or not, or somebody else is. If we don't have the benchmarks in place today, then it's no better than the last 3 years where you guys did not do an evaluation. Not all of you. I recognize some of you weren't here, but Ms. Hayes was, Ms. Fontaine was, Mr. Poisson was. It is critical, and you owe it to the public in light of your failed duty for the last 3 years, to inform us about the policy and procedure, which is on the record. Tell us where you are in that process. And furthermore, to provide answers to questions and information we have requested in the last couple of meetings that go directly to an assessment of where we are as a district. Only then can we, as the public, actually judge the decision-making you do, whether or not it was a thoughtful and meaningful process. But I'm not so sure that you or others are interested in that. So with regard to Drummond and Woodson being here tonight, I certainly hope they advise you that it's not the time to go forward with an executive session unless you have already done those other things. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
So in speaking to that, Mrs. Hayes, why don't you bring us up to date? I would love to know as well. Where are we in this procedure? What boxes can we check? Which
Karen,
what
you were
information
there.
have we collected?
What have we done?
But there have been, I would
Karen,
like
what
that
have
to
we
come
done?
from you. I would like that
No,
to come from you.
Karen, what can
Mrs.
you do?
I can't speak to this
you
because
were there.
I do not
All right,
know
let's
some of the
move
things
on.
that are on here.
Where was she?
I entered one executive session, Mrs. Hayes, that did not list some of these pieces that were on here that I must have missed. So I would love to see where we are at as well. I'm just asking for clarification. Has step one been done?
Yes.
Can you read step one out loud, please?
Right, right. The motion is to retain
But
or
it
not to
speaks-
retain.
but it
The
speaks to
motion
that.
is to retain or not to retain counsel.
You don't get to control the discussion, Ms. Hayes.
I would like to see the vote taken, but I also would like to see, the public needs to know where we are in this process, and this is the process right here. It is the process. You gave us this.
Yes,
It is a
and you've been
policy.
following it?
And policy should be discussed in front of the public, procedures in front of the public, protocols in front of the public. So I think it would be good for our citizens to know where are we, in the timeline of things.
Actually, we're on number 5, and I'll read it. You got it, Elfrida? Superintendent and
Well,
school
I've got it.
committee meet to discuss results. To discuss the results of the questions that we took and answered and asked. The committee also has the opportunity to ask questions about the self-evaluation, including the goal performance report. The superintendent is giving her goal performance report this evening. And she's going to summarize this year's goals and prepare for new goals for next year. That's where we are. We're on number 5. We've done alternating biennial group of principals, directors, management team, and members, associate principals to fill out the assessment instrument. They email or share the completed electronic form to the chair of the school committee to integrate the results. Mr. Kendall started that, and we went from there. The superintendent, now step number 2 is the superintendent does a self-evaluation and performance report on achievement of the goals for the current year during the prior year's evaluation process. The report is sent to the chair along with recommendations for the next year. So at this point, I had asked Brian in a session, I had asked Brian and Faith to be part of the evaluation team on this.
Was there a vote on that?
Excuse me.
I have the same question. Was there a vote on that? Was this
I don't
something-
have, I can appoint, the chair can appoint. And we appointed Dan to policy, Brian to policy.
We also received an email who was interested in sitting on these committees or subcommittees.
However, the committee was not explained as being a committee that would be working on the superintendent's evaluation.
Yes, it was.
Wasn't it explained as a negotiations committee?
How can we be negotiating when we
Excuse me,
haven't
Laura, could
completed
you
the
please-
evaluation?
We're not negotiating, we are
Been
evaluating.
no meetings or negotiations.
Stop using the word then, please.
Well, please,
You have to understand, everybody's a little nervous, so we have to have a little patience, okay?
You should be nervous.
In the
Because
past.
you've broken the law
right, let's call a
time and
recess.
time again, and you sit there and say
Okay,
that
meetings in recess, meetings in recess.
you are breaking the law.
Mr. Thistle,
Again.
Come on.
You weren't even aware of the law until I
I'm
told
still
you.
waiting for the
I don't
vote on the
work for
lawyer.
someone who wrote something. You don't even have to pay me.
have a motion on
We still have a motion on the floor,
The meeting's in recess right now, Alfreda.
okay? Okay,
Well, the motion depends on whether this clown can come into the meeting.
I would like to speak with Drummond and Woodsmith if they're here. Are they here? I don't know. You don't know? No, I don't know. Where are they?
I don't know. The attorney is here that represents us on this very important matter. I don't know. I feel like I'm in a Jeff Spicoli movie. I don't know, Mrs. Hayes.
Is it this attorney that wrote this?
Holy crap. Unbelievable.
That's his opinion? So basically,
they can't go back and talk about stuff that's illegal. I'm not going back there.
I don't know, but Brian.
and again, sorry, I was,
Poor Brian can't get up and leave.
I'm just sitting here.
Doesn't want to do that, would he?
Yes, yeah.
They don't know what the law is, but they're following the law. They don't know what the law is.
They don't understand it. One is supposed to complete a self-evaluation.
What's the hourly rate for your legal advice?
Right?
Which is what we reviewed last week, the entire package that we got back,
Who did?
the whole committee. That was part of last
So
week.
you had the principals, the city manager, and all that?
Everything we got back, I don't know exactly who they were from.
Okay. So,
Because we did do it anonymously.
I don't know who it was from. They were all anonymous. I've no, there was no
And that-
compilation of anything. It was.
I
okay.
will say that
but here's the thing. So
Well,
here's
I'm
what,
not
how
gonna
it's
dis-
supposed to
yeah.
be. So what's supposed to happen is that all those are supposed to come together.
Yep.
And the superintendent are supposed to meet to discuss the results. So everybody should have it. And like today, she said that Superintendent Grundon was going to talk about her self-evaluation. In
Yep.
truth, you guys should all have that already.
we do. We have the big,
No,
the
the
red binder.
self-evaluation, you
Yep,
have it
yep.
written down?
That's it.
Yes,
That was
it's
that
in the
red book that
binder.
we, that's in the binder.
Yeah, that's a joke.
Okay, and so then you're supposed to be able to reflect to her
Correct.
on that.
Last week, we generated, the entire committee generated a bunch of questions that we provided to the superintendent Monday before my surgery, because I went and met with them last week. We took everybody's, whatever, we took all those stickies, we comprised them, we gave it to the superintendent. What we're doing today is having her go over the red book in detail with us.
Right.
Here's her
Patience. At this time, we are ending the public session, and we're going into executive session. May I please have a
You have a
motion?
motion on the, you have another motion on the table.
All right, all in favor of the motion on the floor, which says that, go ahead, Sarah.
Just clarify the motion. Are
Go ahead.
we supporting having lead counsel, or are we disqualifying as the motion stated?
All right, the motion is to disqualify.
I'm really, really sorry to interrupt you. And this has nothing to do with this. I have 4 students who are 5 or 6.
I know you do, and my-
You know, to be honest, I've never made it out to one of these before, and I'm here, and my heart is pounding out of my chest.
Yes, I understand.
And I really want them to have 2 minutes, please.
And I would like them to have their minutes too. So let us get through this motion, and then we will go quickly into public session for the students. Thank you very much. Okay, can I have a motion? We've got the motion. All in, what, Pat?
Read the motion again, please.
Motion that we disqualify the lawyer who is present today to participate in the executive session proceedings based on the fact that the school committee was never advised of this possibility as of the last executive session meeting on October 16th and again today. This decision was clearly made solely by School Committee Chair Bonnie Hayes. Furthermore, the school committee was never given the opportunity to vote on whether we desire the presence of a lawyer, nor given the opportunity to approve expenditures for the lawyer's services. So this is a motion to disqualify the lawyer today.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Question, is it just for today, or is it for the whole proceeding?
The attorney is here for the sessions leading up to the contract.
I meant
we need-
your motion, does that mean for today only, or for?
Well, for right now, disqualify until we vote again. We can vote and say yes or no after that. We
Okay,
can bring
any
another
other
vote.
discussion? All in favor of disqualifying the attorney for today? Can I have a show of hands? All in keeping the attorney?
Which one is which, Kate? It was a little confusing.
I was disqualifying.
Disqualifying.
You're disqualifying?
So, 1, 2,
All right, so we will not have an attorney.
and you two, Brian,
Okay.
2.
All right, so we're not having an attorney today. So at this time, I thank you all very much.
Thank
At
you.
this time, I would like to have the lady that came forward, the students, come one at a time or in groups or whatever you want to do. Come up and join us. Pull the chairs up and speak to your issue. Take a deep breath.
My name is Colleen Bask. I'm a senior at Elder Little, and yesterday myself and many other students were dragged into the administration's idea of solving the discrimination issues. Throughout the day, they called several different groups of kids sorted into categories by different minority groups. I was called with about 8 other students that are LGBT by name during our classes to meet with 2 members of our administration, in which they told us that it would look good on our transcripts if we went and spoke to an unnamed man about things that the staff, but, quote, more importantly, the students do wrong, end quote. Everyone in the room knew that we were all called because we were mostly the openly gay students of the school. We all looked at each other mortified as they said things like, quote, we know who you are and what you do. They sent us on our way and called more groups with what they called themes, including, but not limited to, Muslim, Black, and female feminist group, where they told the ladies, I know you talk differently when the men are not around. They continuously ask us to solve and come up with ideas to fix their own problems, even if that means calling on the minority children to blame our classmates for their shortcomings. They let us down and asked us to do their job. This was an unbelievably inappropriate event, and it was demoralizing and dehumanizing, and everything that possibly could have gone wrong did. To fix the severe racism and discrimination problem at EL, they chose to segregate groups by race and out queer students over the announcement during our classes. The staff and students are outraged by how this was handled. We did not get the luxury of privacy or respect that day. I've talked to many angry students, and we feel like pawns in the Auburn school system's redemption arc after the negative press that went entirely unaddressed by our school. The staff, students, and parents of Auburn School Department are done with nobody taking any responsibility for their many, many mistakes that have resulted in blatant disrespect to the students. By not doing anything, they tell these students that they do not care about their well-being, comfort, and safety. This is not about us. This has never been about us. If it was about us, this would not have happened the way it did. We will not be used as pawns to give Auburn a better name. They will earn it.
Thank you very much. That took a lot of courage. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Any other students that would like to speak?
One of my comments had to do with this, and if you don't mind, one of the comments had to do with this exact thing. I have heard from a lot of people, and I think this is really, really crucial, really important. And just let me, she really did such a succinct job, a great job. I couldn't do any better. But I want to know that I have received comments from a lot of alarmed parents. Students feel singled out in front of their peers. I have brought my initial concerns about this program and consultant to the superintendent, but you dismissed it, not believing what I was conveying to you regarding self-respect and the professionals that have been working with this individual. And in the past, we have had some concerns from a couple of people who came to me and said, why are you hiring this person? And they conveyed to me the instances they've had, which are just like this. So now we repeated history. So my question is, why are we not utilizing individuals trained in Green Dot? They perform this in a natural setting, not like what you just heard, and the cost would be nothing to the department. And these are past teachers, these are professional individuals who would be able to help our students in a natural setting, not in a contrived setting. So I strongly urge that we suspend Mr. Westler's program until a full investigation is completed, and I expect to hear a full report before the school committee and the public.
And I'm absolutely in agreement with Mrs. Fournier. I've written a letter to the school committee tonight. It basically states, I didn't have your experience, honey, but really my last paragraph is, in light of this recent information, I will call for a full stop of Mr. Steve Wessler's services and ask for a full investigation into how these students' names appeared on a list. The ramifications are far-reaching. And while I will never disagree or dismiss that racism and bullying are part of our culture and our schools, I ask what role we played in condoning that behavior by calling those children down by those groups, and I respectfully submit.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any students?
Ms. Hayes.
Any students at this time would like to speak? Any other students or parents that are here would like to speak concerning this issue? Concerning this issue?
Yeah, I'll speak.
Okay.
You will be very lucky. My name is Scott Thistle. I don't even know if you guys are recording the proceedings tonight. You're not broadcasting them, so, And I will speak first that I appreciate you thanking me for reminding you of what state law is.
To the subject, please.
Okay, so to this subject, the fact of the matter is, you guys will be very lucky if one of these kids or one of these parents do not have you in federal court for a federal civil rights violation for what you did to these kids. Right. This is not something that goes away after they go home and somebody says, oh, I'm very sorry, I violated your civil rights.
Okay, is there anybody else that would like to speak to this issue?
I would.
Go ahead, 3 minutes.
Ms. Hayes, one of the things that has concerned me in the past and was part of my information request last December that I didn't pursue because I was told it would cost $400 and
to the issue, please, Laura.
The relative I was taking care of passed away. Human Resource Department, we don't have one.
No, we don't.
So the remedy that is afforded for these kids with regard to a complaint about what happened here, who does it go to?
It goes to the principal and to the
I
superintendent.
believe it goes to Michelle McClellan. I believe she's the EEOC officer.
Yes, it does.
I found that out myself, okay. So do you see a problem at all with the fact that students are being asked to go to the very administration that is ultimately responsible for the behavior that occurred here? I'll let you think about that for a while. On a separate and different note, I do want to flag tonight for all of you sitting up there that I have heard from teachers. I want to go along with what Ms. Bass just said when she said, it's never been about us. It's been basically about the image. But if you want a good name for EL, you need to earn it. I was contacted this week by a teacher, and I reached out to at least 4 other teachers to confirm the information that currently our administration is so desperate to raise graduation rates.
Laura, to the subject, please. We're talking about the students.
Yes, so desperate to raise graduation rates that there is a proposal of a pathway out there in which our teachers of our elective and core courses are being asked to put together packets of information or oral questioning or projects by which a student who is short credits, sometimes very far short of credits, can earn in an instance of a couple hours worth of work credit for a course that would have spanned an entire semester. I would ask you to find out more about this and then stop and consider how very short-sighted it is for the district to water down its diploma, damage that will take years to undo. Please consider this for the sake of our community. It is not enough to try to build up the name of EL on the paper with false data about who is graduating proficient. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other concerns and any other comments concerning what has happened at the high school? Anybody else? Yes. This is only about the students that it occurred last week? Yes. Thank you for coming up. Thank you.
I'm Taylor Gabbett. I was initially called down to go to the meeting, but I did not go. But I just know that a lot of the students felt really uncomfortable and threatened and ashamed and humiliated. I know that my best friend felt humiliated, and I think that's your responsibility to take care of that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you.
Anybody else that would like to talk about the incident yesterday with the students? Okay. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Thank you. Moving on, we have a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Before we do, can we keep in mind that what we discuss in executive session is dealing with strictly personnel, and if it has to do with process, procedure, and policy, we discuss it out here.
Yes, thank you, Elfrida.
Thank you.
So we're going into executive session for the purpose of discussing the superintendent's evaluation pursuant to MRSA 405-6A. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of going into executive session? Brian's opposed?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming tonight. We will be in executive session, and we will adjourn from there. We'll come into the public, and then we'll adjourn.
Hope you keep in mind what happened at